Good afternoon, everyone. Now that there is a good amount of interest to understand what the entire PMP training is all about, we have taken the opportunity to give you a view of all the key objectives under each section. So moving on to the training content once again. About PMI, this is what we covered last time. We have covered everything about the exam. We have covered how to apply and how to use the training for the CCRS or the claiming the professional development unit. So everything about PMI is already covered. In the upcoming sessions, we have the sessions that are listed below. Essentially, the project management framework, project lifecycle and organization, project integration management, project scope management, project time management, project cost management, project quality management, resource management, project communication management, risk management, procurement management, stakeholder management, and professional responsibility and ethics as the various sections that we will be covering over the next 16 to 18 sessions. Now, going into detail about each of these areas, we will take the project management framework. In the project management framework, you will learn about what a project is, what is the definition of a project, and what are the key characteristics of projects, and how projects differ from operations. I had given a brief introduction about that in the questions that were related to some of the practitioners who asked whether their experience in manufacturing would count as projects. So you will understand in more detail about projects versus operations in this section. Project management in general, you will understand more about the PMBOK guide. There is a guide that is published on the body of knowledge. And you can learn more about it in this session. The various PM processes and knowledge areas. The entire PMBOK or the body of knowledge is divided into 47 project management processes. And this is grouped under 10 knowledge areas. And the knowledge areas are the ones that start from integration management, scope management, time management, cost management. All of these are knowledge areas. And all of these knowledge areas are further, or the processes are also grouped under process groups. There are 5 process groups, namely the initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closure. So these process groups contain the 47 processes, which are also grouped in another horizontally grouped under knowledge areas. So you will be given an introduction about that. The key difference about programs and what program management is, portfolios and portfolio management. I briefly touched upon the topics, but we will go into further detail in that. And project management office, how to run and set up and run a project management office, how to be part of a project management office to contribute effectively in your organization. All of this is covered under the project management framework. So this will be one of the first sessions we will start into when we start the training sessions, which are going to be evenly paced from January 23rd onwards. So this will be the first session. And as you may know that we will have around 16 to 18 sessions of 2 hours to cover the 35 contact hour requirement, and the topics that we have are only around 12. So most likely these chapters would overlap between 2 sessions. The next is the project lifecycle and organization. The key learning objectives is how it interacts in the system. Sorry about that. Okay, how it interacts in the system and analysis in the organization. What are the organizational systems, structures, boundaries, roles of users, sponsors, stakeholders, all of this within and outside the organization. So a project is executed not in isolation, but it is usually embedded within an environment which is already in place. Typically, this would be an organization. In some cases, like government projects, it may touch multiple organizations and multiple stakeholders in a particular locality or different localities. So it becomes extremely complicated. So from small projects to very large projects, the life cycle and the organization is pretty much the same. It's only the scale that differs. You will be able to recognize the various phases of a project life cycle and the various in the context of specific areas, knowledge areas, or interest groups. We can look at the projects depending on the interest of the group. All right, so we will try to give touch upon some of the industries that are relevant to you, making the interaction or the training much more useful and close to you. We will be discussing the 5 project management process groups and how each occurs within each project phase. So as I mentioned earlier, each project, the project management processes are grouped under 5 process groups, namely initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closure. So we will be giving a clear idea how it applies in various phases of the project. The project-related procurement of products, services, etc. from external organizations is also important and integral, especially in large projects and mainly in civil projects and extremely large-scale projects. You will see that much of the non-essential services are typically outsourced to other companies, and how it all plays together is part of the project lifecycle and organization. The specific examples in GIS we can take, or if it is relevant in other industry that is important to you, we can make suitable customizations. The project integration management is the next area. This is one of the knowledge areas. Till now, what I have mentioned is basically introduction to or a general overview. From project integration management, we enter the knowledge areas. There are 10 knowledge areas. This is the first of those. The objective of project integration management is to give an understanding how the project management knowledge areas interact and how these processes interact between various process groups, various stages, if I may, like planning, execution, monitoring, and control, or how it interacts together and how one change at a particular point influences a corresponding change, or how it cascades down the project steps is decided in the project integration management. For example, as part of project quality assurance, there are certain observations made by the quality auditor. How do you make sure that it reflects in the other areas like cost management, scope management, etc.? So all this is typically covered under the project integration management. Sorry. We will also cover the project plan execution, how it interacts with the project planning phase. You will see that every phase, the processes move from initiation to planning, from planning to execution, from execution to monitoring and control, and to closure. In this, the most important thing is that monitoring and control is something that occurs across all the 5 across all the 5 process areas or process groups. So monitoring and control is an exceptional set of processes which continuously monitors the performance of the project, and you will see how that influences the project integration management in this section. We will also briefly touch upon how software can help you in project integration management. You will see a lot of products that are available in the market which allows you to automatically view changes that are made in one part of the project. For example, if you look at a requirement specification management software, what it will do is it will help you build a traceability metrics with your test cases. So whenever there is a change in requirement or a scope is modified using a change request, the software will automatically alert you on the redundancy of some of the test or quality control processes that you have put in place. So such software, how it can assist a project manager in doing his job better, we will briefly touch upon that as well in the project integration management. Next is the project scope management. This is where typically you collect the requirement for the project in detail, and as you can see in management, it is not just about collecting requirements, but it is about managing scope. So one difference in project management that I usually urge the participants of any training is to view it from a different perspective. We are not talking about scope control or cost control. We are talking about managing scope or managing cost. So it is more about the management aspects that are important and what are being discussed here. How to go about managing scope. It is not about ensuring that scope does not change. It is about dealing with the situation when the project scope changes. So I urge all participants to look at it from that perspective. This is more about managing all these specific areas like scope, time, cost, etc. And you can see that there is a set process or a set steps in executing this to be successful. The planning processes are followed by the execution processes, and you will see that some of the the knowledge areas have processes that cut across multiple process groups. So depending on the type of process or the knowledge area that you are dealing with, you will see how it plays out throughout the project execution. So it also has, in scope management, we will define the processes for developing the project scope statement using a project charter and a preliminary scope statement. So when you must have all come across situations where you are requested to start a project without being given a clear view of what exactly the management is looking for in the execution of the project. So you will be able to deal with such situations by having a project charter and a preliminary project scope statement. So we will discuss about the importance of that, how you can use that in your day-to-day project execution processes to manage people and stakeholders by getting as much of the scope or understanding defined upfront. So again, it touches upon the scope verification, how scope is being defined and controlled, and some of the scope management, the scope creep. Typically what happens is, as you execute long-running projects, there is always the risk of scope being modified and new requirements being added into the existing set of requirements. So how to deal with scope related problems on projects, etc., we will discuss on that. The next knowledge area is time management. This is usually even very junior project managers are required to manage time very well. So if you look at the complexity of the various aspects in project management and how a project manager moves in his project management career, you would see that typically the project manager is initially given responsibility for scope management, time management, resource management. Then as he matures or maybe gets more experience, let's say 1 or 2 years, he will be given additional responsibility of risk management, quality management, cost management. And again, after 2 or 3 years, he will be given more responsibility, including communication management, stakeholder management, integration management, and even for procurement management. So typically you can divide this into 3 clusters, and time management is probably one of the very basic and essential part of project management, and useful for even junior project managers. You can learn about developing project schedules and project time management, how to ensure good time management. There are various software products also available. We will briefly touch on the software products. There are certain graphical representations like the Gantt chart, which is frequently used today, especially since it comes as part of the project management software, and is very good visual representation. And we can also briefly touch on some of the very latest techniques that are used in Agile. Very briefly, not exactly related to this, but more from an interest standpoint, we can even touch upon some of the burn down charts, etc., which are relevant to the new age method of executing projects. So overall, we will be looking at project time management. These are the various aspects in time management that we will be discussing and going through. The next is cost management. This is very critical. Usually mid-level project managers and senior project managers are responsible and accountable for cost management. So this is where most of the projects fail. Even if projects typically complete the requirement scope and time, usually there will be cost overruns, and it is very important that the project manager is able to plan very well and mitigate necessary risks in cost management. So we will go into great detail on the basics of cost management principles, and we will also look at different costing methods, the estimations, etc., so that you can arrive at a more accurate estimate over the period of execution of the project. There is also steps involved in the cost budgeting and cost estimation. And we can look at what earned value management and how that helps in giving a clear picture to executive management on the progress of the project. Again, software plays a significant role in cost management. Today, it is very difficult to run large-scale projects by collecting information and putting it together using spreadsheets or even written down costs and etc. So there are ready-made software which are very equivalent to a ERP kind of system, which allows you to assign costs to the various aspects of the project and then automatically get the burn down or the budget expenditure, etc., as the project progresses. So we'll briefly touch upon the software aspects, but mostly it is going to be about the concepts in cost management. The next knowledge area is project quality management. The importance of quality management and defining quality for a specific project. Some projects will have very stringent requirements of quality, whereas certain other projects may not have such stringent quality requirements. So the project manager is expected to behave according to the need of the project rather than applying a very stringent quality requirement for all projects. So quality is a perspective from the end user. So understanding how to apply the right quality control measures and the right quality assurance standards is very important. So this section gives you a good overview of quality management. So the next is project human resource management. The HR plays a critical role, and as we know that ensuring the successful execution of projects involves having the right people on the team. So people are a critical part of project execution. So the getting the right people on board is critical. In some cases where people need to be trained, all these plans in terms of risk mitigation, ensuring that people are available continuously throughout the projects by making sure that the team members are motivated and are able to work together is a critical part. So we will go into some of the detailed practices that are practices and recommendations that are in the market regarding resource management. And It will also give us an idea about this section. Also gives us an idea about the influence of organizational structure, how the reporting hierarchy is required to be made to ensure that team members are motivated and have got the right guidance from leadership, be it technical or functional leaders, or from project leaders on considering the importance of the project. The metrics is designed. Again, in addition to that, to keep the team members motivated and to help them work in a collaborative fashion throughout the project, we will have team building activities and reward mechanisms. So all these aspects are discussed under the project human resource management section or knowledge area. The project communication management is all about making sure that the project progress is properly reported to the various stakeholders. And if you look at a typical project manager's time spent, you would see that 80% of the time is spent by the project manager in communications, in ensuring that people understand the progress of the project, people understand the expectations, especially on large projects where there is a lot of people working together. There is always scope for communication gap to delay the project and significantly affect the quality of a project. So it is very important to understand the nuances and the complexities of the project that the project manager is dealing with, and to make sure that adequate time and measures are taken for communication to seamlessly flow between various departments that are participating in the execution of the project. And all of this is covered under the communication management. Today you will see that there are a lot of methods and technologies that are available to ensure timely communication is sent across. For example, there are certain integrated application development or product lifecycle management applications which automatically send communication and updates about completion of various stages to the next team that is expected to work on it. We can briefly touch upon some of those software products that are available in the market that enhances this ability. And this shows how much importance communication plays in the execution of a project. And as I said earlier, a project manager is expected to spend almost 80% of his time on communication. The next section or the knowledge area is risk management. An experienced project manager understands the value of risk management. It improves the predictability of a project. You will be able to make sure that whatever you have committed to various stakeholders can be met by adequate risk management and also making risk response strategies. So all of the risks that are related to a project are identified, assessed, and responses are designed to make sure that in the event the risk occurs, there is an instantaneous response with a pre-planned action plan to take care of the situation. A very basic aspect of risk management that we all experience in our lives is the fire exits that are available in large buildings. In multi-storied buildings like apartments and office complexes, you will see that there is fire related activities that are being done. For example, they also conduct drills or fire drills, which will ensure that the people who are occupying in that apartment or the office building is ready and knows how to evacuate the building in the event of a fire. So such kind of preparations are conversant to us in our daily lives. Similarly, for project execution, it is very important that risk management practice is executed properly, so that all the potential risks are identified and mitigation strategies are created. So you will learn much more about risk management in this section. The next is project procurement management. Typically, large projects procure a lot of these services or products from various companies and integrate it together. if you look at very large construction companies, they will take and execute only what are core to their skills. Whatever is peripheral or non-core areas, they typically outsource to smaller companies who are partners or vendors to the primary contractor. So in such scenarios, the project manager has to work significantly with the procurement department, and especially in such cases you will have large procurement departments. In smaller companies, the project manager may have to execute all the aspects of procurement. That is why PMI has introduced a very basic introduction to procurement management in this section. It is not very difficult. It gives us basic idea about what are the different procurement methods and the advantages and disadvantages of choosing the contracting models. So all of those will be provided here, and usually in large companies there will be a procurement department that the project manager works very closely with. So PMI has ensured that by giving an introduction in this section, a project manager is able to work on his own or work effectively along with the team of procurement management team in the organization. There is a new section that has been recently added in the PMBOK version 5. So for a very long time, from the beginning of PMP certification, they had only 9 process areas. But in the last revision, they have included stakeholder management, because it has been identified that the success of a project is critically affected by stakeholder management. How you manage stakeholders determines whether a project is successful or not. So usually when you look at a lot of these government projects, you will see how managing forces external to the project are important. Like for example, when there is a highway construction, there will be environmentalists, there will be local associations or groups that try to prevent or require changes to the original plan. It is very important to make sure that the stakeholders are identified, stakeholders are weighted according to their influence to the outcome of the project, and adequate management strategies are developed, and stakeholders are controlled and engaged throughout the project execution. So by identifying the importance of stakeholder management, PMI has helped project managers to take a formal approach to managing stakeholders. So this is a new addition to the body of knowledge, and very important addition. It has got a lot of new questions coming up in this particular section. So for those who are aspiring to take the PMP examination, should look at it, take a closer look at this stakeholder management. Then there is the professional responsibility and ethics. The clear learning objectives is to make sure that you can identify and address the various ethical issues that are in practice. There will be questions that are related to ethical activities like paying bribes, etc. Whether even if the processes or if it is an accepted mechanism in certain countries or certain societies to accept bribe, from a PMI perspective, giving or taking bribe is not considered as an ethical practice. So there will be questions similar to that, and there will also be the questions related to conflict of interest of the individual. For example, if a project manager owns equity in a supplier company, the project manager has to make sure that he is not part of the decision making team to award the contract to the vendor company. So these kind of conflict of interest, etc., are discussed in this section, and there are certain guidelines that they provide in terms of how to deal with certain situations. You have to be aware of that and make sure that you respond to the questions in such a way that are aligned with the PMBOK or PMI standard related to responsibility and ethics. So these are the areas that, so with that we end the training. So the various chapters and the sections that are related to the PMP training are mentioned here. So I hope I have been able to give a good overview, and I would request others to ask any questions, if any, so that I can give further clarification on each of these areas.